says there's one. Can we start? Assalamu alaikum to yourself. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Inshallah, today's talk will continue the era of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu an. And today we will talk about the decisions that Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu an made after the passing away of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And inshallah we'll try to learn the lessons that we can gain out of it. This is the most important thing that we can learn from when we are talking about the lives of the Sahaba. What can we learn from that so we can apply in our lives? These Sahaba were from the best generation, as the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam talks about, and then the generation after, and then the generation afterwards. Now, we are talking about the generation of the Sahaba that gave us the whole Islam. They are the one who passed on the Islam that was given to them by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now, when we look at the Abu Bakr's life and the two aspects, the two main decisions we talked about in the previous couple of talks, one was a decision he made about continuing the army of Usama bin Zayd that was prepared by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And he did not want to take that decision back for any price, because that was the decision of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Even though majority of the Sahaba were in the favor of, if not sending, at least delaying it, because of circumstances of the Muslims in the Arabian Peninsula at that time. And the second part was when the apostasy was done by many of the people of Arabian Peninsula, that included the people like Musaylim al-Kadhdhab and like him, and the one who were following. So there were a couple of people who claimed to be prophets after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away. And about that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave the prophecy as well already. And Musaylim was one of them that appeared in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, Aswad al-Ansi was another one, but both of them were fought by Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Now, that was a very delicate decision that Abu Bakr made. Now, when Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu made this decision, as we talked about last week, even people like Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu came to Rasulullah, to Abu Bakr Siddiq, and tried to prevent him from making this decision. And the history showed us that those decisions were of great importance, and the steadfastness of Abu Bakr paid the price that Islam continued on. Otherwise, corruption would have crept into Islam from that very beginning of the time of Khulafa Rashidin, from the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. As Abu Bakr, when he replied to Umar ibn Khattab, when he was asking him not to send the army, and his response to Umar ibn Khattab was, were you strong during the days of Jahiliyyah, only so that you can become a coward in Islam? Subhanallah. You are talking about the response to people like Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh like this. Such a great response. And whenever we think of people like Umar bin Khattab radiallahu an, we can feel the power and the strength in his decision making and the way he ruled over the people as well. But in front of Abu Bakr Siddiq, when he came to Abu Bakr and tried to sway away from that decision, the response of Abu Bakr to Umar was that, were you strong in the Jahiliyyah, so you become weak in the day, or coward in the days of Islam? And subhanAllah, and he continued his decision. Now, there are two things I want to talk about and two lessons we want to learn specifically from these two decisions of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. One, which is a very important aspect of Islam, which is shura. Islam emphasizes on the subject of shura. Shura means you consult people around you. And Abu Bakr was not the one who would not consult the people. You see that he was consulting. He was consulting all the Sahaba around him. Just because he understood something one way does not mean that he would not consult. He did consult. And he consulted people around him because he understood the importance of the shura. As Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَأْمَرُهُمْ شُورَ بَيْنَهُمْ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that rule over them but do the consultancy. But now about taking the consult, what does that mean? Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. That consult about important matters that you are taking care of. Now, did Abu Bakr go by whatever the Sahaba's advice was at that time? Or did he stick with what was needed and what does the Sharia expect from you? First of all, when we talk about the shura, and of course when Sahaba were giving their advice, they're not the one who are going against the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They would never do that. Especially as a whole, they would never ever you find any kind of an error from the Sahaba ridwanullah alayhim. But now when Abu Bakr was taking the advice from the Sahaba, let's understand one simple thing, but one of the most important things to understand about shura. Shura is not about making laws in Islam. Shura is not legislation. Shura is about things that Islam has already allowed. Now you are trying to get the advice to which of the halal thing that we should go by. So Abu Bakr was not asking for a shura to go against any of the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Sahaba ridwanullah alayhim were not giving him the advice to go against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala either. So when we talk about this incident, what we're talking about is two halals in which you are making a choice which halal to go with. Now, here Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu an, he understood the situation of that time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this situation of whenever we are in a situation where we have two halal ways of doing action, you can consult. And we can see Rasulullah's life also, and we have talked about that in the past as well. So, I have the water. In the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when we talked about the issue of Badr, when Rasulullah was going towards the well of Badr, in the battle of Badr, and the army was stationed at one point, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was approached by a Sahabi, and Hubbab radiallahu an, and he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a very specific way, is this a command of Allah that we are stationed here? Or is this just your personal choice? And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam clarified that it was a personal choice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then Hubbab gave his advice, and he said then, this is not the better spot. You can go to another spot which was by the well of the Badr, take the water, close the well, and go to a higher place. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam accepted this advice of Khubbab radiallahu anhu. Now see, this was an advice Rasulullah took. We see the very similar way in the time of Uhud. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was asking for advice. So advice you find throughout in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam where advice can be taken. And now, in the case of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, he has no choice. In the case of Usama bin Zayd radiallahu anh, his army to be sent against the Romans at that time. Why he did not have any choice? Because that army was prepared by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the one who appointed Usama bin Zayd radiallahu anh. Some of the Sahaba were saying, and they had the concern, especially from some of them from Ansar, they had the concern that the age of Usama bin Zayd radiallahu anhu, some of them reports he was 18, some say it was 17, some say he was 20. Whichever it was of that age group, considering that many of the Sahaba were of much older age. As a matter of fact, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, when he was preparing the army, Abu Bakr and Umar was part of the army under Usama radiallahu anhu. And we see that how Abu Bakr prepared the army and made sure that everybody goes along with Usama, the one supposed to be under him, and they obey him as the Amir of the army as well. Now, that's about the consultation. Now, the other aspect of that lesson that we should learn and we should remember is the lesson about majority of the people were going against Abu Bakr's decision in both cases. In both cases. Whether it was the army of Usama, whether it is fighting against apostasy. Now, what does Islam say about majority? Is that just because the majority goes one way, then you have to obey the majority, or Islam says something else? Well, Allah Azza wa Jal says, and many times, and this is why we find what Abu Bakr was Siddiq radiallahu anh was adamant about. He did not consider the issue of majority is in any way to come up with the ruling in Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّوكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you follow majority of the people on the earth, يُضِلُّوكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, they will misguide you from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what Allah Azza wa Jal says. إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ وَإِنْهُمْ إِلَّا يَخْرُصُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying they follow nothing. Talking about who? The majority of the people on the earth. They follow nothing but conjecture. And they do nothing but lies. يَخْرُصُونَ. That's what Allah Azza wa Jal is saying. And this is not just one verse. I can sit here and probably talk for hours and hours about many verses, and I will just want to give you some taste of it from the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the majority of the people out there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَقْسَمُوا بِاللَّهِ جَهَدَ أَيْمَانِهِمْ لَيَبْعَثُ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَمُوتُ بَلَا وَعَادًا عَلَيْهِ حَقًّا وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and by swear by Allah, the strongest oath that Allah will not raise up him who dies. Yes, there is a promise upon him in truth, but most of the mankind, وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Majority of the people do not have the ilm. So now look what's going on here. Majority of the people are following conjecture. Majority of the people lie. Majority of the people are the one who do not have knowledge. Another place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَشْكُرُونَ. Majority of the people are the people who are not thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about another place that إِنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّكَ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Here Allah says majority of the people do not believe. So look, This is the situation. And ayat talks about some of the people, the majority of the people are the ones who do not believe, the one who do not thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who follow the dhan or the conjecture. Majority of people lie, majority of people are fasiqun, and on and on and on. So if Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who's telling us the status of the majority is like that. And not only that, on top of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also talks about, you cannot say that you take the opinions of the people while not everybody is equal in the sense of their knowledge. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about ضرب الله مثلا رجلا فيه شركاء متشاكسون ورجل سلما للرجل هل يستويان مثلا الحمد لله بل أكثرهم لا يعلمون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and here this is called the similitude Allah has given about a man who has multiple masters, meaning talking about the one who made partners with many, and the one who has one master. It's a similitude. The one who worships one Rabb. Allah is saying, are these equal? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَفِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. The people who have the knowledge and the people who don't have knowledge, are they all equal? But majority of the people do not have the knowledge. And this is what we find around us in a very natural way nowadays. It feels like as if whatever the majority says must be right. If that's the case, what would be the result of that? The result would be that the rights of the minority will be taken away. No matter how nice you are, because now the majority is given the way to go their way, right? That's one aspect of it. Second is, this is a facade. This is just a mirage has been created in front of the people, as if when the rules are talking about the majority rules, as if the majority really matters. I was given a khutbah last Friday, and we were discussing a subject there. The hadith that a lot of time people, all the time, they try to, I would say, fool the people. Why am I saying fooling the people? Because the hadith that they use about whenever we talk about the situation of the ummah and how the hukam are doing the deception, they are deceiving the people, then all the time we hear this hadith, كيفما تكونوا يولى عليكم. كيفما تكونوا يولى عليكم, that you have the rulers like you, basically. You know, this hadith is a weak hadith, to the least. Majority of the scholars mention about the hadith, this is a da'if hadith, and some of them say weak, most of them say it's a fabricated mawdu' hadith. When we say mawdu', when we say a hadith is fabricated, what means by that is this is not a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by the way, just to be very clear. The term mawdu', hadith mawdu' is used by the scholars so people understand that this is not a hadith, because it's been mentioned by somebody and relate to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this hadith is not even a hadith. And I would like you to go some research of your own as well. Okay? Now, the problem with that is, when you say this, you take away all the blame from the ones who are ruling over the people by corruption. And you say this is because of you they're over you. And if that's the case, that should apply for the good and the bad, right? Now, okay. Now going back to the subject of Abu Bakr's decision, I want to keep it connected here. Majority of the people did not agree with Abu Bakr at that time. Abu Bakr should have gone along with them if that's the case. And can I say because of that hadith, the one I'm talking about, that everybody under Abu Bakr was like Abu Bakr? We know that was not the case. And na'udhu billah, by any means, we cannot say when Rasulullah was ruling, everybody was like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam under him. Similarly, today, when we talk about the rulers around us, I want to know how many of us have a life like Trump, Biden, or Harris, or Nawaz Sharif, or Zardari, and you can name it, or Sisi, and on and on and on. How many of us have the life like that? How many even know to live like that? How many are like that? So how can I say they are the reflection of ours? From where they are the reflection of ours? If they are really the reflection of ours, then whatever is happening in Gaza today, the way the Ummah feels, they must have moved by now and relieved the Ummah from the distress they're going through by the Gaza. But we don't see that. So it's not only the hadith is fabricated and da'if, it does not even match the reality, and on top of it, it goes against many of the hadith and the Quran directly. Because Allah Azza wa Jal command us to do Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy al Munkar, enjoying the good and forbidding the evil. That is one of the obligations on all of us. Isn't that the case? من رأى منكم المنكر فليغير بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان. Rasulullah is saying, whosoever sees a munkar, stop it with your hand. If you don't have this capability, then with your tongue. If not, don't have the capability either, then go ahead and feel it bad in your heart. And this is the lowest level of iman. After that, there is no iman. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the title of the best ummah, kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas, ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. Even this title that was given to us is connected to what? The one who enjoying the good, the one who forbid the evil, the one who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how can I say that this is not our job to do this? So from all sorts of places we find this is other way around. Now, going back, so lessons that we learn. One, it's not the majority that rules in Islam, and we can see that the way Abu Bakr made those decisions. And it's not that Shura is the one that decides halal and haram. Shura is taken to understand the best policy to be implemented within two halals. And Abu Bakr was successful in both the cases. In both the cases. And this is the lesson we should learn whenever we talk about that part of Abu Bakr, Siddiq radiallahu an, inshaAllah. Of course, there are many other lessons, but these are the ones I find they are important from the day and time that we are living in. Jazakumullah khairan. If there's any questions or comments about the subject that was covered, inshaAllah, I will try to answer them. I want to keep it short and sweet today.